I sit here thinking about this, and since you brought this up, I think about what kind of drove me to this. Obviously family farm. Yeah, my dad
Mhm.
went to broke farming. We won't talk about that, but I would have loved to, but it was not because of the choices that were made before I was able to get into it. And the reason I got into HVAC is my uncle Rick.
Mhm.
Uh, he lives down in Texas, and not everybody approves of everything he does, but he's made a very good career, made a lot of money for himself,
Mhm.
did very good business. Another guy that I dealt with. I remember my middle school shop teacher, Mr. Wentlet. He's been passed away for 30 years now. Middle school shop class. Be doing metals and doing different stuff, and I
Mhm.
still got my Spencer Tiger, metals deal that we,
Mhm.
where you melted the, no, it wasn't lead, but you melted metal and you poured it in.
Aluminum,
Yeah,
probably aluminum.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, actually, he just died. Scott Reddy. He was not only a football coach at Spencer, but he was our woods teacher in high school, and I remember his wife getting pissed off at me because I quit
Mhm.
her Spanish class to take her husband's wood shop 3 class. Like, you're quitting Spanish, going to take wood shop 3. I said, number one, I don't care if I learn Spanish. Number two, I'll get a lot more out of wood shop than I will learn in this. And
Mhm.
just great, great people. But you have to have them experiences and want people that are willing to show you. I think about Hunter, 2 stories on Hunter, and there's a neighbor down the road. His first name is Mark. He lives here in Council Bluffs. Retired from the elevator. Mark took Hunter. I like to pheasant hunt. I've never been much of a deer hunter. Took Hunter down deer hunt about 6, 7 years ago down by Clarinda. They hunted. That's how we ended up with our dog Zoe. Um, Went hunting. Hunter shot a deer that day. This Mark came back, showed him how to clean a deer. Because I listen. I was never a big deer hunter. Just never did it. Shit.
No.
Hunter can clean and dress and have it quartered out in 45 minutes. Now it'd take me 4 hours of a sawzall.
Mhm.
And then you talk about the other person that was involved with at Lewis Central. They got it's not a work study, but where you go spend an hour where it's maybe kind of like you do admin
Mhm.
jury.
Mhm.
Maybe you're a paper runner or
Career
whatever.
to work.
Yeah,
Career to work. Yep.
yeah, whatever it is. You know who Hunter went and hung around with? You know who he hung with? The janitor. You know why? Because the janitor says, yeah, he sweeps floors, but they get in all fun stuff and creative shit stuff. Coaches would be looking for stuff. He says, hey, I got a set of keys and going, well, the balls are in here. He
Yep.
sat in and know them guys. And, he knew
Mhm.
more. It's kind of like my son Harley with the IT stuff at school. Hunter knew how to get into all the computer programs stuff. Hunter knew where everything was. So if a teacher didn't know where it was, there was a better chance that either the janitor didn't know where it was. Hunter
Mhm.
probably knew where it was. And like,
Yep.
no one's ever wanted to do work study or whatever you call it with the janitor. It's like, well, why is that? It says, well, you can learn a lot working for the janitor. Janitor's not the highest paid guy on the pedestal. And they loved it. I mean, they just thought it was a freaking blast.
Mhm.
And it's
No,
just,
yeah. I think I I fall into that statistic of maybe being I'll say maybe being embarrassed with my career choice, even though I went to a 4 year as a teacher and I chose to be at the time a technology educator. And that's what I always said. Oh, what are you going to school for, Steve? I'm going for technology education to be a technology educator. Oh, you're going to teach computers. Oh, no, 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 no. No, I'm a technology educator. And you start explaining it. And I was always trying to use these big words, which I'm still not very good at, and trying to sound really important. Like I am really, I'm doing a great field. And finally, the person after I explained to goes, "Oh, you're gonna be a shop teacher? Oh, well, a technology educator is currently. You're gonna have a shop? No, I'm gonna have a lab. I'm gonna have a lab to work in." And after about 5 years of being a teacher,
like, I am a
I'm
shop
like, you know what? I'm a shop teacher, and I'm okay
And
with
there's
that.
nothing wrong with that. Gotta need more people like that.
When you look back on your careers, I've told this to many many people. I mean, I like the path my career took, and
Yeah.
I look at it and it's been fine. But if I could go back and change one thing, I would have never left Dyke New Hartford. I
No.
would have stayed there because, again, I fell into the old trap of, okay, I'm going to be an administrator because that sounds a lot better than being a teacher. I'm going to work towards being, a community college administrator because that sounds a lot better than being a teacher. But I wanted to go back and talk to that person after 10 years of teaching and say, you know what? It's okay if you retire as a shop teacher
It's
or
okay.
as, just a teacher in education. And I didn't do because I was always trying to, be better, do this. And like I said, I fell into that trap myself. And I think that's still the mindset. I don't know how we fix it. I don't know how we get how we fix all of these things to help kids understand that career and technical education or just anything you're in is try to find something you love. Just do it. Underwater welding, you brought it up. How
Yeah.
many kids know that you live here in, on the Mississippi, we have lock-in dams, right?
Yeah.
We had a kid come in to our welding program who graduated from a community college welding program. He didn't know about that. He got a job, got his underwater certification, and he goes down to locking dams all up and down the Mississippi and does some underwater welding.
There you go.
And he makes some good money.
Yes, he
I don't
does.
know how many kids say too, well, I want to be that guy that climbs that 2,000-foot tower and changes that light bulb that I'm sure all of us have seen on
Nope.
YouTube or
Not,
whatever.
not
But you
me.
know what I mean? I don't either. I'm scared of heights. But that person, yeah, it's a risky job, but it's a very important job that
Absolutely.
they do. And the janitor, a huge important role in any business, anywhere.
Yeah.
The garbage man is a big important job.
Yeah.
And getting kids to understand that if that's what you're interested in, it's okay. Let's figure out how you can be the best person you can at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with it. I love it. What do you do for a living? I said, well, I do heating and air conditioning. Like, oh, that's nice. That's like, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, that's nice. And they go, what? It's like,
hmm
it's, I don't know.
hmm
I don't get impressed by titles. I'm a
no.
lot more by impressed about how you treat people and how you are in a relationship than you ever are. You know,
Well, I think it goes back to my my nieces and nephews of the story I shared, and with our own kids. You have a son that is still working for Amazon up in
see it.
Washington,
Yeah, but see, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And doing great. And you have a son that starting out his own electrical business. You have another son that's still trained to be what aircraft controller.
Yeah, air traffic controller, yeah, which is
And
scary.
you know what? You're proud of all of them. You're right. Title same here. I've got a son, my oldest son. Yeah, he has his PhD,
Hmm.
and I'm proud of his accomplishments.
Yeah,
I have a daughter who graduated with a BA, and I'm really, really proud of her as well. My son that's in college right now, you know, it's kind of funny. He goes, Dad, I just wanna do this. And he talks about just, having he's really into his, movement and exercise science, but he doesn't want to be a physical therapist or anything. He wants to be his whole, develop the whole body, right? Which I could use help with that.
I can
But mind, and he got introduced to yoga, which I'm not I'm not big into yoga, but
I
he
know.
got introduced to all these things in college that's what he wants to do. And he's like, but Dad, I'm not going to make a lot of money. Are you going to be doing what you love? Yeah.
Then that's
You'll
all I
you'll
care.
live inside your means. If you live inside your means and you're doing what you love, you are making a lot of money.
And at
You
the end of
know?
the day, find your passion. So find your passion. Don't
Yeah.
settle. If you don't want to go to school, if you're not sure, don't waste money just because you don't know what to do. That's there's other ways to figure it out. So
The one thing that I did when I was at the college, and I know we're probably getting close to our end, but I always went in to talk to the students in the classrooms. In the first years came in, even the second years. Again, relationships. We talked about that.
hmm
I always told them, hey, my door is always open.
hmm
You know, very few times am I doing something that's so important that I'm not going to stop it and have a conversation with you. I talk to a lot of kids about football. basketball, just farming, anything like that. And when I was talking to these students and I would start to talk about, okay, how are you liking your program? I could almost guarantee you if that student was really happy with the choice they made, just on the excitement that kind of got into their voice about what they were doing. Hey, talk to me a little about what type of things you're doing in the lab right now, or you could just hear them, and you knew the kids that had that figured out. They knew this is what I want. This is exciting. This is what I want to do. This is great, Bob. And you had the other ones that you're kind of like, well, they're still learning. They might be there, but there's always a telltale sign.
Yeah,
And
you figured
if
it out.
you're doing something you're passionate about and that you truly love, the other thing with me, I wanted to build dog houses. How's that? I
Because
wanted to build dog houses.
you're always in the doghouse.
Well, I wanted to make one, but I got into understanding, especially in our climate in Iowa. I kind of laugh at it too, and people did, but okay, the size of a doghouse, the size of the door, based on the type of breed that you had, living in this cold climate, what they needed to do. It couldn't be too warm, because if the dogs got too warm, they didn't develop the coat. And there's all these things that went into it to design this. And obviously, a doghouse for a lab is a different size than a German Shepherd than a Saint Bernard. And there was so many different things into it that I still do. I get excited about it, because it's not just building something
Yeah.
and the four walls. It's everything that goes into to build it correctly based on how it's going to be used and by what animal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so a kid wants to do that. I'd tell him, you know what? Go after it.
Go for it.
Do it.
Absolutely.
Go
So,
do it.
yeah. So here's one thing I want to know. You're a graduate from Ball State, right?
Can I say what we called it on this podcast,
Yes,
Travis?
you,
Or is
yes,
that probably
yes, you can. Yes, you
Testicle Tech?
Okay, Tesla Tech Ball State. So
Yes.
with that, since Manscaped is an official sponsor of Ball State sports, as being an alumni, do you get a complimentary like $35 voucher to Manscaped?
Now that I know this, Travis, that I didn't know, I'm a little upset, because I can honestly tell you, no, we don't. But I will tell you that Dave Letterman graduated from Ball State, and the number of cigar places when I was there was unbelievable because of Dave Letterman. Uh, the other claim to fame, and I don't have the hairdo,
Yeah, we
but
do.
Bob Ross, the painter,
Yeah,
painted all of his Joy of Painting shows on Ball State campus.
really.
Yes. So Bob Ross, Joy of Painting, right there. And the funny part of that story, tons of history there, and you can go listen to it, is he got famous with that big old curly afro,
Yeah,
and he hated it.
that's
He wanted his hair, he did it. He got famous with it. He was afraid to change it. Moral of the story is, whoever's listening to this, especially students, whatever, don't be afraid to change it.
no.
If it's not working or something, don't be afraid. Just because you went to a 4-year institution and you got out there and went, this isn't what I thought. Okay, yeah, it could be expensive to go back, or you might want to go for a job in industry, and just go do what. Don't be afraid to change.
Yeah, don't be
And I
afraid.
think we put these handcuffs on students, and the Department of Ed puts handcuffs on programs, and
Mm-hmm.
we just goes on and on and on. But there's no good answer. I don't know if we had that meeting that I just talked about. We just talked for an hour, and we're going to say, hey, we're going to meet again. And I don't know if we really solved anything, but we brought hopefully out to light that there's a lot of things out there that people can do.
Yeah.
And it's the people talking that needs to demand change in how things are done.
Yeah. Well, if your money's out there to be spent, let's spend it wisely. Let's do stuff that makes sense. You know, like I said, there's no right answer. I do think one thing you said, the more individual control, the more individual the schools are involved. you know, you know, talk to people in the industry, talk to people that are local. What's needed local? You know, not every kid's going to stick around, but find out what kind of needs are locally. You
Mhm.
know, to where if you're in school or something, not to get straight specifically to that, but what are employers wanting, and what's different for me is going to be different for somebody else. You
Mhm.
know, but I think there's a lot of employers out there that where there's good jobs, and you don't have to have that degree. And unfortunately, there's been a stigma with it. But listen, the stigma's got to change. I mean, if you look worldwide, there's a pretty low percentage of people that actually went to college worldwide. College is kind of like, you know, for the fluty do or whatever. And I mean, it's kind of became a norm here. And,
Mhm.
you have to question if, we're, I don't know if watering it down is safe, but it, I listen, I was never college material. Hell, I'm barely dating material. That's the fact because I wore a bear shirt 30 years ago because someone dropped me on my head before I was 25. That my
Uh,
wife posted today that I've
for
been.
those of you listening, that's a whole nother podcast. All right.
Because Lord knows you can see the team I got in the background. They sure as hell ain't the Bears. Now I got the cup.
I've got a picture that shows you in a bear shirt, and I'm gonna say that you know what, you are a Bears fan. You just don't want to admit it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep
yeah.
saying that.
Walter Payton and William Refrigerator Perry are not alive anymore. So that's a way different time. So
Mhm.
uh, anyway,
The I think that in order in order for things to continue to move forward, we need to limit all the requirements that are in high schools right now. There are so many requirements of courses that they must take that it really limits students from exploring options. And
yeah,
I think every kid should be required to take not just required to take electives because those are there, but required to take certain types of electives. Just like they're required to take PE.
mm-hmm.
If you're not out for a sport, you got to take PE. Okay, great. But after, 2 years of taking PE, you're probably doing the same thing over and over again in most PE curriculums to a certain degree. Why not allow them to take something else in a different area? My son Brady was a freshman and he goes, I didn't have anything else, so I had to take foods class. I'm like,
I
that's
agree.
great. That's great. Well, you're gonna cook, you're gonna learn how to cook. And you know what? He learned how to cook.
That's
He
okay.
didn't necessarily learn it from his mom or I. He
Yeah.
learned how to cook, and he was making some dishes. I'm like, dang, that's
Well,
pretty good.
yeah.
But
Well, I,
he took it because he couldn't find anything else to take.
well, that's all right. It could be worse. So at least he's not taking trigonometry or something like that. Something I'd never pass. So that just sounds terrible. This other now. If you go to Lewis Central, if you're out for a sport, particularly football, they want you to take personal development. So basically, it's
Mhm.
weightlifting. It is what it is, right?
Sure.
Well, then I sit there at TJAL yesterday. If you're out for a sport, then you don't have to take PE. Or you
Hmm.
don't have to take any sport of, development or whatever. And I'm just kind of like, two schools, same town, well, three schools actually, total opposite, different philosophy as far as how they live. Is either one of them right or wrong? I don't know. I mean, if you want to argue on the athletic field, maybe, but there's more than just taking and not taking. So when you can't get two schools in the same town that kind of come to it, it's like how do you come to consensus? And that's why at the end of the day, you just got to figure out what it is that you might want to do. Hopefully, you don't spend too much. Might find out you want to do something you don't do, then figure out what it is you like or you want to do, and go for it.
I understood, and this is many, many years ago, but I understood how they were trying to get, the mathematic curriculum all on the same page across the board. So if you were to take trig in Spencer and I took trigonometry down at Crestland and we flip flop schools at about the same time, we could pick up right where the other one left off. And I understand that. But they tried doing that with current technical education and in shop class to where all the programs look the same,
Mm-hmm.
cookie cutter,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work for every program. It's different, and I don't always like saying it. Career and technical's different, and there's a whole debate on pay because there's so much more to get ready for. Well, I chose to be in that. I chose to be a teacher. I don't feel that they should be paid any more or less, but to say that they're all cookie cutter in the same program, and if I took a welding class again at Crestland, you took a welding class at Spencer, we flip flop, they'd be the same. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but we don't necessarily have to be teaching the same courses because our communities are different. And the beauty of the career and technical program was looking at your community,
Yes.
but also the world of career and technical education.
Yeah. Well,
So,
wait, something I sat through in the meeting the other day, and I know we keep going back to this, and like I said, God, we might have to make this two podcasts where the rate this thing's going. But here's something that came out of that meeting the other day. Talking about the instructors. So I mentioned OSHA, just safety.
mhm.
So they've got two instructors in each school, and
Yep.
neither one of them, three of the four, there was one of the two schools had a
Mhm.
guy that was OSHA certified, and they're teaching the OSHA 10 to the
Yep.
high
OSHA
school
10
students.
hour.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
for construction, so for not
Sure.
general say for mechanics safety, I said, so you go to this school, neither one of you been through the OSHA 10 hour, but you're teaching the 10 hour.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there going, okay, and then and this is the crazy part of it. The school would pay for certain things if it directly affected the class, but they would not pay. The district will not pay, or the federal government, it's Perkins, would not pay for them to take an OSHA 10 or 30-hour class to actually get certified. As Lord knows, we're working with power tools there because they could possibly take that and leave the school and go into private industry. And
Okay, great. Great.
I'm like,
Do it.
how fucking asinine, excuse my French. I said,
No.
so we're teaching, we got shop, and these are good guys. I have no doubt about it. I've
Mhm.
seen some of their stuff. Yeah. But
Mhm.
the school, they won't pay for it. Listen, I'm looking at sending all my guys to update it for shop for training and whatnot.
Mhm.
Because I got 3 or 4 guys I want to get OSHA 10 in at least. And I said the district would not, Perkins would not pay for it. I'm like, okay, this is just freaking crazy. I just,
Mhm.
so you're exposing young adults or kids, young adults, whatever, to this, and these teachers. I don't expect to be certified and everything, but safety. If you're in a that type of environment, I don't care if it's an industrial tech lab or a welding lab or an auto lab.
Mhm.
There has to be some sort of standard as far as safety. Well, OSHA is pretty much in the construction
Mhm.
trades, pretty much your standard, and they
Right.
won't pay for it. Now, that's not
Well,
saying they can't from other sources, but I was blown away by that. I said,
mhm.
so what? You have a driver's license and you can talk to kids, and I just that's where I just kind of had to walk away. It's like,
Well,
what are we doing?
that you touched on another subject. Yeah, we could do a whole other podcast on is safety in OSHA. But real quickly, as a high school, public high school, we don't you don't abide by OSHA rules.
Mm-hmm,
I always taught OSHA
mm-hmm.
and the OSHA safety, but you didn't have to abide by them. And I'll give a shout out to our other cousin Ryan Canoy.
Yeah,
Ryan Canoy and I would talk about Ryan, for those you don't know, Ryan, he's in construction, that whole area, and now he is the
he's
director of
cleaning,
facilities.
he's cleaning cat litter boxes at the men's bathroom
Yeah.
in Sheldon Community
Okay,
School.
we won't
Oh,
get into that talk either. But director of facilities at Sheldon, we would walk through the shop, and the teacher's no longer there, and be like, "This is not good." And there would sometimes be posts that an unknowing person in mass media class would take pictures of kids working in the shop and post them on social media, and I would not see safety glasses. I would see sweatshirts. Okay, right now what you have dangling around your neck, I would be all over you in my shop class.
earplugs,
Okay, yeah,
earplugs.
there you go. But we would see that.
Yeah,
We would see um somebody using the table saw and they're cutting a 3/4 inch board and the blade is raised up 3 inches and there's no guard. So just certain things that you don't post that on social media if you're doing it. You don't want people to, but where's that type of training and the safety aspect of it? Nothing more gets my blood boiling when I hear, in even out of the community college, well, I don't make my kids in auto class use safety glasses because out in industry, they don't have to wear safety glasses. And I'm like, well, in certain places they do, but a lot of these mom and pop auto places, no, they don't have to. But you go work for a dealership in there, you'll see them on. Okay, I get it, but here they're following the safety glasses and they're working. But then we'd have one of our custodians or our maintenance guys walk right through the middle of the shop, no safety glasses on. A tour would come in and they take a group of students right down the middle, no safety glasses on. It's how do you promote that when you have people that are just not doing it? But then in the high school, not teaching it. I'll give another shout out to Eric McCullough down at East Sac County. I was down there a couple of months ago, and Eric was a student teacher of mine when I was at Dyke New Hartford. He went to Wall Lakeview Auburn, now East Sac County. He's been there his entire career. He had a group of freshmen, and they were in Wood's class, and they were reviewing for some safety tests because it was kind of the beginning of the year and getting going. And he goes, Mr. Wallstein, do you want to ask him some questions? So I asked him just some general ones. Okay, when you're using a bandsaw and you have your guidepost, how far should that be above the workpiece? Boom, a kid rattled it right off. 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. Okay, good. Why? Why does it need to be like that? Because I think that's all part of safety. I can tell you to do something, but you need to understand why you're being told to do this. Boom, rattled it right off. So your finger will hit that guard before it hits the blade. Wonderful. When you're on a drill press and you have a long board, should the long side of the board be to the left or to the right as you're drilling it? And they said, well, it should be to the left. Why? So if it catches, it's going to hit the post of the drill press, or on the other side, what's it going to hit? It's going to hit you. So I told Eric at the end of that, when I was done, I'm like, you know what? Great job. Because not only do they know left or right, but they know why it needs to be that way.
Yeah.
And I think students react a lot better when you tell them they need to follow this safety rule, when they understand why you're telling them to do that. And when and we go on with that, but he was doing it right down there. And then we have some that, I would be scared to death to have students working there, because as a shop teacher, I had to trust students. Yeah. My ears were my biggest ally because I could hear things. If I heard that blade binding, on a table saw, I was getting over there because I knew what was going on. So ears, but I had to trust my students. They were going to follow the correct safety guidelines that we put in place. And knock on wood, worst accident I had was a X-Acto knife cut that required stitches. And I will say I did not go over safety of an X-Acto knife. I didn't do it. But I know there's been some other teachers that, haven't been that fortunate in their years of teaching. And so safety is so important, and doing it the correct way. Yeah. The whole thing of do as I say, not as I do, or just do it because I told you to.
See, that's how you
why they're doing it.
That's how you get them with a spot like this from your head in the Navy, and then trying to cut my finger off for you, but I can't see. I tried to cut my finger off. I was about 6 years old, so do as you say, do as I say, not as I do. I have lived that in my life, but the point is so you don't get scars in your head, and you don't try to cut your finger off because I was a dumbass.
Well, it's funny because back in the day, when I was teaching adjunct classes at University of Northern Iowa, and I was teaching like methods to technology education, so future shop teachers.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I always do is I can go, I've been a shop teacher for five years.
I've seen a lot of farmers do that.
And someone would laugh and someone would go, I don't get it, and I'm like, You know, I got all 5 fingers. I got everything.
Uh,
But how many times do you see old shop teachers or whatever that had some fingers, that were missing,
a
and it can
lot.
happen so quickly because you're not thinking. So you always have to be on guard and teaching safety. One of the things I'm most proud about is a student who was out on an apprenticeship. I'm not going to say the program. I'm not going to do anything, but it was at NCC. He was out on an apprenticeship, and I got a phone call from the person he's doing an apprenticeship with because he's rather upset with the student because they weren't doing the job that owner wanted them to do. And I got that side and I talked to the student, and I had the instructor in there, that was running, with the apprenticeships, who was one of our instructors. And the student explained why he refused to do it. You know why he refused to do it? It wasn't safe.
Well, there you go. If
It
it's
wasn't
not
safe. It
safe,
wasn't the way he was taught. He knew it was wrong to do it that way. He knew it was maybe the quick way to get it done.
it's
And
not
he didn't
right.
feel comfortable doing it, nor did he want to do it that way. You know what? We pulled him out of that situation.
Yeah,
Because if he's going to work for somebody that taking on an apprentice or an intern, they're not doing it for the right reason. They're
yeah,
doing it for quote unquote kind of free labor.
yeah.
And I was never more proud of that student and the instructor. Not only did that student know what needed to be done, he knew why doing it that way could be life threatening. And again, that's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
it's like guys wearing wedding rings, or wearing ring. I can go on about that. But how many fingers I've seen where guys have had rings or whatever, where they've just skinned it to the bone, and it's just like, why? Well, my boys can get mad. Well, it's gonna be mad when you come home and you don't have a freaking finger either. And
Yeah.
it's just like, it's like, okay, so we're gonna be vain. I
Mhm.
just, but no, it comes back to safety. Kind of with times I've seen guys burn eyebrows off,
Mhm.
or like I say, talk about safety glasses. And I get it to a point. My favorite one with my shop is shorts. I got a couple guys who want to wear shorts. You know what? It's like, okay, here's the policy. I'm not gonna tell you can't wear shorts, but if you go out there and you work with shorts on and you burn the shit out of yourself,
Mhm.
don't call me for your workman's comp claim,
Mhm.
because I'm going to tell you my policy is no shorts. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell you, you're an adult, you figure that decision out for yourself. But if you call me and say, well, I didn't let you do shit, you made that decision on your own and you can live with the consequence. You know what doesn't happen?
Mhm.
People don't wear shorts in my shop. It's like, you have a choice. You don't have to listen.
Right.
I fired a guy that started second job. He goes, well, I'll be fine. No, you don't understand. You're not going to wear
Mhm.
shorts. And he jumps in there and says, well, obviously we have a listing property. Well, I'll be fine. No, you're not going to be fine. See ya. So,
Well, yeah, and we had a program again after advisory committee meeting. I hadn't been in NCC very real long. They were talking about proper PPEs and clothing and everything, and right away they're talking about long sleeve. They had to wear long sleeves all the time, whether it was summer, when always had long sleeves on. And so after doing that, like, okay, our students don't aren't wearing long sleeves. I said, nor are you in that. And it was, well, we're training them for industry, but we're not industry. I'm like, yeah, we're training them for industry. Therefore, we're going to follow what the rules are.
mhm.
And so everybody started wearing, long sleeves on that. It's those little things that when they do choose a program and whatever, we talked about the cover not meeting the pages on the inside, or the page on the inside not meeting the cover. Those are the little things, because out of one side of our mouth, you say we're not training them for industry, but then when it comes down to it, we're training them for industry.
Yeah.
So if they're going to follow OSHA safety standards when they're out in industry, we better be teaching them now, and we better be following them now.
Well,
And if they have proper PPEs that they need to be wearing out in industry, we better be doing it now. And it doesn't matter to me. Are you going to tell a nurse? I was going back nursing. They have all sorts of proper PPEs they have to follow, but I guarantee you, every nursing program doesn't go, well, you don't have to wear that because you're a student. No, they go into those clinicals. They're following everything.
they have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're good.
So, but in career and technical, in any program, we have to too, because there are reasons those guidelines and safety precautions are in place.
Yeah. The job says
Follow them.
you need to have hard hats. You think you don't need to. There's a reason for it. It is what it is. I mean, They're
Hmm.
there's a reason
Yeah. Yeah.
for that. So no,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I think you have to, it's something that's not overlooked. The biggest thing for me is ladder safety. I've had three incidents. Well, one from falling and two from ladders in the last 10 years, and nothing was major. One a guy fell and banged his hand and had neuropathy.
Hmm.
I had one that supposedly fell taking a ladder off of a roof. I don't know. Well, the other third one, I guess, but we've had two or three ladder incidents now, and
Yeah.
you talk about that, and so I'm.
Hmm.
And here's the deal: I bought ladder. Every ladder was rated for me. Well, here's the problem I'm running into now. I got a kid now that's $130, right? And he can't lift the ladders rated for 400 pounds. So it's like,
Yeah.
shit. So we got to get a smaller ladder so
Yeah.
he
I
can
think
lift.
it's like I said. I'm sure that we're getting onto it here almost an hour and 20, over an hour and 20 minutes. But the other thing that is so difficult in current technical education programs, there are certain ways to do a certain job. Okay, we take your profession, for instance.
Yeah,
There are ways that a certain job needs to be done, but it's maybe not. I want to say not the. There's no industry standard on how it needs to be done, but it's the way it needs to be done. And there are people that maybe do it slightly different. That's correct, and you get the same product when you're done, but it's just a little different process.
yeah,
So we talked about that a lot because we had instructors that sometimes one was teaching the way they were taught how to do it, and the other one was teaching this way, and the students were like, "What? Which way is right, or which way is wrong?" Neither one of them is right, and neither one of them is necessarily wrong.
yeah,
But we always called it the NCC way. This is the way we're going to teach you at NCC how to do it. However, there's this way and this way. When you get out into your job and you're doing things on your own, and if you're working for yourself, you can do whatever you want. You're working for a boss who wants it done this way, even though maybe we didn't teach you that way, you understand enough of the way it should be, that they're talking about to do it. And that again goes into the continuity of the program, the strength of the program when you have instructors teaching, but also teaching them alternative ways that it could be done that are correct also.
hmm,
And again, there's so many things to go into the current technical education program. It it just needs to.
lot, lot,
Oh,
lot,
yeah, so
lot.
we just go into it. Yeah, I got lost there for words because it's just so much that we can do. I always thought there was one way to do math, but then I see all these little YouTube videos of these people doing this different way than I was taught, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a different way to do math. But the answer is the same.
Yeah.
They're just doing it really different than the way I was taught.
Well, you know what I found out when I was 18 years old. There's one way to color. You know how I found this out? We're doing the senior picture, and I with color. Everybody's coloring one way, and I started coloring the other direction. And they go,
Mm.
"Didn't you know you're supposed to follow the lines?" I said, "No." It says, "Where were you at the day they taught coloring class?" I said,
Principal's office.
"In shop."
Yeah.
You're like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, thank you. I know like I said, we had 25 minutes first time. We've got almost an hour later second time. Appreciate you coming on, spend some time talking. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I want to just end. Trav, I love what you're doing with the podcast. Whether two people or 2,000 people watch these, you're trying to get exposure to a topic that is important to you, important to me, but it should be important to everybody
yeah,
because when these trades are gone, I don't know if we're going to have automation that's going to be able to come in and fix a sewer line that broke.
no,
And so they're going to need to be there to some degree. We can talk about, robotic welding. There's not a need for welders. There is still a need for welders. Maybe not as great as there once was, but it still needs to be there. So these trades and getting them out in the open and talking about things sometimes people don't want to talk about. Again, being retired and out of education, I can sit here and well, I would have said it anyway, but say that, you know what, the Department of Ed needs to change some things up when it comes to career and technical education. They're not doing it right. They might think they are, but
that
they need to get out there. They need to get boots on the ground and see what it's really like out there. And I just appreciate you taking the time to do these and to have different topics on. And I listen to them. You know, every
it,
week I try to listen to what is a topic of conversation, and
it,
it's a good thing.
it's just one perspective. And if someone says, "Hey, I'm glad I didn't make this decision," or "I'm glad I did," I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have 100 applications tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of smart people out there. There's a lot of opportunities for smart people. That doesn't mean you have to go to a 4-year education. There's lots of ways
Mm-hmm.
to learn. There's lots of ways to become an expert in your field, and whatever. And don't let I'm not against 4-year school. I've never have been.
No,
Otherwise I
no,
wouldn't
I'm
be.
not.
I
Yeah,
would be a huge Hawkeye fan. Because guess what? They're part of a 4-year school. And by the way, Caitlin Clark's pretty good. Last time I checked. So, maybe not the Iowa offensive coordinator, but time will tell on that. But
well, the last thing you brought up one more thing. I always one more thing. But there's a company here in the the county that they have a rule, or not a rule. Basically, anybody who sees something that's being done
mhm.
and can see how to improve that process,
Oh, absolutely.
they can write down that process going, if you're a janitor and you're walking by and you have an idea on how that can be done better and it's not even your job, you can put that idea and send it off. And I've always said that.
Hmm.
That's the way it should be, because people who are labeled or who have a less than desirable job by society standards are really smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I applaud that company because, again, they get it.
Hmm.
They understand it.
Yeah,
And what if you know that you have input into those things, regardless of what your job title is, it just makes you feel more empowered to go do your job well.
yeah. One
So,
last thing, since you're talking about this, you talk about learning from old timers and doing different stuff. You ever been to the John Deere, or not, the National Toy Museum, the Erdl Toy Museum up in Dyersville? You ever been up to
of
that?
course, many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a guy, me and my wife were up there last fall. We went to Iowa, Wisconsin game, spent some time around it.
Hmm.
We went there. And there was a gentleman there. He does these wood toys.
Yep.
I
I
mean,
met him. He was at the Albert City Threshermans for many years.
okay.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what. If you ever get a chance to go up to Dyersville, it's not going to take all day. A couple, 3, 4 hours, whatever you want to spend for time. And some of the details that he does with this farm implement and toys, and he builds them out of wood. I mean, if you see the ICA sheet and how everything works, it's freaking fantastic. I mean, this guy talked, and I had all kinds of questions. I'm like, how do you make this? How do you do this?
For
This.
many years, he went to the Albert City Thresherman's show. I know exactly what you're talking about. And at first glance, you would not know that that is a something made out of wood.
No,
And when you're talking about how it works, I'll never forget he had a tractor with the old style manure spreader, the old bed style manure spreader,
yeah,
and he put sawdust in it.
yeah,
And
and
he
it
pulled,
worked.
and the demonstration, he pulled on a string. Well, first he hooked it up, and the 3-point hitches and everything locked in, worked. I mean, it was amazing. But when he pulled that, he had a video of the actual machine spreading manure. And when you looked at the pattern on that video to the pattern that his sawdust was throwing that out, it was the same.
It was the
I mean,
same.
that's the detail we're talking about.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
this guy's, and we talked
Amazing.
to him, and great conversation. And I just sit there and think back to like my grandpa and your grandpa, and
Mhm.
different stuff you learn working on the farm, spend time with them. And I talked to him, and I'm like, so now you obviously he's got kids, he's got grandkids. I go, do any of them take an interest in it? and I felt bad. I asked the question because we talked for 20 minutes. He
Yeah.
goes, Travis. He goes,
No.
no interest at all. I said,
Mm-mm.
really? He goes,
He
yeah,
had all daughters.
yeah, yeah.
Not that that means anything, but you didn't. I mean, he said I have all daughters, and none of them really are interested in him.
But the grandson, I thought, man, if I could, I mean, I never had enough time with my grandpa Howard, and
Mm-hmm.
I spent a ton of time with him,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at some of the stuff he's doing. It's like, man, this is freaking amazing. You get one kid or one family member taught this. I mean, I don't know if he's ever gonna get rich yet, but man, just the conversation piece and conversation he had, and I asked him the question. We talked about it a little bit. It's like I just looked at him. I said, that's really sad because and even he said, I said, that intricacy in that detail. And there's people that have paid the guy thousands of dollars to build stuff. His own
Mm-hmm.
grandkids ain't that interested. It's like, holy
Yeah.
shit, you don't know what you're missing out on. It might not mean
Right.
nothing to you, but man, I tell you what, I'd be sitting down and spend an hour with my grandparent or parent or whoever it was to at least learn a little bit about it because I was like,
Yeah, but like,
can I be your grandkid? I
I
was
asked
like,
him. I
holy
can remember asking him. I'm like, do you sell these? And he's like, no, I don't. I don't sell them. He goes, because I wouldn't know. I don't want to charge. He goes, because the amount of hours that he puts in, and he doesn't build them quick. He builds them
oh,
because he loves to do it and to put all the details in. He goes, I could sell it for $5,000 and I might get paid 50 cents an hour. You
and
know, he goes, because I just got so much time and I don't even know where to put it. And it's just amazing on what he was able to do. And,
oh,
you're right. If I had something like that from my grandpa, it would be great. My most prized possession, I hate to say it, from my grandpa is I have a golf ball that he took grandma's nail polish and painted an AW on,
oh,
you
really?
know, because I knew that my grandpa did that. And it was just an AW, but I knew he touched this. He painted that. And yeah, to have something like that my grandpa, yeah,
Yeah.
it would mean almost the same as that golf ball, but it's just, it's so powerful. And I don't think a lot of people
Oh, I,
realize that at the time.
I was just like, wow, probably the best thing I've got from my grandfather, and I'll see if I can't get a picture of it over here. So,
Yep. Here
I,
it is. Yep.
yeah, for those who say that is the first full year production of first full manufacturing production, 1964 John Deere 110, the first year that John Deere made full production. They had 63, they had demos, but if you follow Sarah, my grandfather, that was his mower for years. And so, I
Mm-hmm.
got it. I got back in, my grandfather died, that's been 1989. I got it back in about 10 years later. All the family was pissed. My uncles were pissed. Everyone was pissed
Mm-hmm.
that I got it. So that's the one thing I wanted. And so we restored it, And there's a picture of me on the internet. I'm a little fatter than my grandfather. So, that old 12 horse Kohler, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it struggles mightily. But yeah, me and Hayden and Hunter finished that thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
and that was fun just to do because it's part of growing up on the farm or the 720. Still love the
Yep.
20 star a 720 John Deere because my grandfather owned one, or
Mm-hmm.
how I got my finger caught in an auger, which that's my own dumbass fault. But I never for my grandfather be involved with that. But then I hear a story like that guy, and it's like,
Yeah.
I would love to.
Crazy.
The problem is, I don't know if today's generation, and I would hope that today's generation be one because it's stuff like that where that guy has for knowledge, you can just talk about for a little bit. I mean, and that's the kind of stuff that you worry in 50 years is still going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. It kind of
Yeah.
getting off crest, but I just, craftsmanship and detail and the fact that there's people that still
Yep.
care enough that want to do that kind of work. I just thought, and it didn't matter if it was red or green. He had semis. He had, like I said, manure. He had all kinds of different stuff that he did. And he was working on another project for his kid bought a new semi or son-in-law or whatever. I'm like, holy
Right.
shit! So, but
But it's been good, Trav. Listeners, hope you learned something.
yeah, Lawrence Wallsteins are full of hot air. Like talk a lot about stuff, but like I
Yeah.
said, young adults, like I said, don't make any fast decisions. So, till next time, which will be next time soon. This is Travis Wallstein with Steve, sign off. And one of these days we'll have to get Ryan. I'll have to get Ryan on here. So you better forewarn him. Tell him I don't want to see
Well, let's just say he somehow found out about our first one and he sent me a text. And I'm not going to say what was in the text on the air, but sure, call him and get him scheduled.
I'll get him on. So maybe we can talk about the cat litter box in the boys' restroom, Michelle.
Oh boy.
All
right. See you later, everyone.
Bye.